This is a scene of Gal Gadot slow dancing in Wonder Woman, displayed on the 2021 OLED television. It may look normal at first glance, but if you pay close attention, you may be able to spot a glowing, brighter contour along the right side of her face as she sways from her left to her right. The same effect could be seen in this sequence from the 4K Blu-ray of Arrival, along the hairline and the shadows on Amy Adams' face as she walked inside the room. These glowing artifacts are caused by the overshooting of white subpixels on WRGB OLED televisions, which I first described as near black chrominance overshoot back in 2018. Over the years, OLED TV manufacturers have employed various techniques to mitigate the issue, all with compromises. 1. You can crush some shadow detail, so that these near black flashing artifacts never rear their ugly head. But of course, you will also be missing out on some shadow detail. 2. You can design the OLED television to come out of black in a quicker manner, so that dark scenes will be presented outside the video range that would trigger near black chrominance overshoot. The downside with this approach is that shadow detail would look more compressed and brighter than reference, causing low light scenes to look more washed out. 3. You can implement heavier spatial or temporal dithering to improve near black gradation, so that sudden jumps in different shades are less frequent. While this method can reduce overshoot artifacts, dark scenes can also look noisier, especially up close. And finally, one partial solution that was pioneered by Panasonic and last year adopted by Sony was to turn off the white subpixel altogether just above black, although at some point the white subpixels still need to be activated, resulting in overshoot artifacts at that particular brightness level. Most OLED TV manufacturers use a combination of these techniques to deal with near black chrominance overshoot, so you will rarely see flashing artifacts even in heavily compressed broadcast content these days, although there remain some OLED TV brands which don't employ any mitigation measure at all even in the year 2021, leading to the glowing artifacts you saw in the intro of this video. Earlier this year, I attended a darkroom side-by-side comparison between the upcoming Sony A95K QD-OLED versus last year's A90J WRGB OLED, with the Sony BVM-X300 mastering monitor as reference. Now, many people are rightly excited about QD-OLED's higher peak brightness and color luminance at the top end, but as always, I paid more attention to down below. And from what I saw during the side-by-side comparison put together by Sony, near black chrominance overshoot may have been solved once and for all. The scene used by Sony for the demonstration was from Monster Hunter, so I was forced to go out and buy the 4K Blu-ray, to add to my collection of discs I keep strictly for testing purposes, not for watching the movie. Now, the Sony A95K is not out in the UK yet, so I don't have it at hand to fully reconstruct the demonstration for you. But here's a Sony A90J beside a dual-layer LCD reference monitor, and hopefully despite YouTube's compression, you can appreciate that the light radiating from the flaming torch held by Mila Jovovich appeared more flickery on the Sony A90J than on the reference monitor. And please believe me when I say that the A95K QD-OLED I saw at the Sony demo event looked as stable as the reference monitor. And if I pause the scene here, you can see a distinct break in the gradient on the Sony A90J, whereas the light radiation was much smoother on the reference monitor, and also on the Sony A95K used in the side-by-side comparison. Sony engineers at the demo event claimed that this is because they were able to control the coming out of black with finer precision on the QD-OLED, since there's no white subpixel in the mix. And in hindsight, the way to banish near black chrominance overshoot forever is by removing the white subpixel from the equation altogether, which is what QD-OLED is doing. With all this said, I thought the near blacks on the Sony A95K pre-production unit still came across marginally brighter than the Sony BVM-X300 reference monitor, but I will reserve full judgment until I can get my hands on a production sample for in-depth review and comparison in my own test room. At the demonstration event, Sony also used this bright sequence from Monster Hunter to compare the viewing angles of the new A95K QD-OLED versus last year's A90J WRGB OLED. This video is sponsored by Box, the online technology store. Visit box.co.uk for the best deals on TVs, soundbars, and all your other technology needs. Again, I don't have an A95K here, but here's how my 55-inch A90J looked off-axis, with a stronger pink tint the further you step away from the center, due to the TV's WBE OLED panel. The Sony A95K QD-OLED I saw was able to maintain its color fidelity better from an angle. Besides near black handling and viewing angles, there are several other picture quality differences between QD-OLED and WRGB OLED. I didn't have time to include them in this video, but you can find out these differences by watching this video here.